Good. I'm Trooper Keller with the State Police, if I haven't met you yet. Just want to introduce some of the people here for today's conference. Right after the District Attorney talks, we'll have limited questions. Please understand that due to the ongoing investigation, we're limited in how much more details we can get into, okay? What we'll bring up first is District Attorney Leanne Mosier.
What we'll do is just start by having everybody introduce themselves so you have that for the record, and anybody else in the back who wants to introduce themselves, they can go ahead, but let's just start by having you learn who everyone is.
My name's Investigator Chris Loophole. I'm assigned to the Binghamton office, and this is my canine partner, Lou.
Senior Investigator Michael Marvin. I'm with the BCI out of the State Police in Lowell.
Investigator Ryan Lehman, Lewis County Sheriff's Office.
Mark Lemieux, First Assistant District Attorney.
William McGovern, Chief of the Investigation Unit for the New York State Office of Fire Prevention and Control.
Randy Rowe, Lavo Police Chief.
Philip Ruggi, Troop Commander of Troop D.
Mike Carpinelli, Lewis County Sheriff.
Sergeant Rich Knight, Lewis County Sheriff.
Edward Stevens, New York State Office of Fire Prevention and Control Investigator.
Investigator Chad Peters, New York State Office of Fire Prevention and Control, Syracuse office.
Investigator Edward Emilio with Lewis County Sheriff's Office.
Investigator Jake Byron, New York State Police, Troop D Major Crimes.
Investigator Sean Finkel, New York State Police, Troop D Major Crimes.
I would like to begin by thanking everyone for being here this morning. This morning in the Lewis County Court, the Honorable Daniel R. King unsealed a 13-count indictment filed by the Lewis County Grand Jury this week, charging Sean Exford, whose date of birth is April 17, 1991, making him 28 years of age, with crimes resulting from a multi-agency investigation into the double fatal fire which occurred at 7525 State Street in the village of Lowell on November 30th, 2019 through December 1st, 2019. It is imperative to always note and remember that any charges in an indictment are merely accusations, and each defendant, including Mr. Exford, is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. On behalf of every person standing before you, and every person in this room, and every firefighter who responded to this scene in record time, and every first responder and law enforcement officer who has worked tirelessly and worked every lead in this case, our first words are expressed to the surviving family members of the two individuals who have tragically lost their lives on November 30th, 2019. Our deepest sympathy goes to the families of Catherine Crago and Saratina Kilburn at the loss of life that they are enduring each day since November 30th, 2019. I wish to thank the agencies who are standing here with me for their cooperative and tireless work since November 30th, 2019. The Lowell Village Police Department, the Lewis County Sheriff's Office, the Lewis County Sheriff's Fire Investigative Sergeant Richard Knight, the New York State Office of Fire Prevention and Control, their K-9 unit. They are a division of Homeland Security. The New York State Police Troopers, the New York State Police BCI, Forensic, Digital, and Major Crime units, whose work led to the arrest and indictment of Sean Exford this week. Today, Sean Exford was arraigned on 13 counts for his alleged involvement in the fatal fire at 7525 South State Street on November 30th, 2019. The 13 counts in the indictment are as follows. Arson in the first degree, alleging that between November 30th, 2019 and December 1st, 2019, Sean Exford in the village of Lowell did damage a building located at 7525 South State Street by starting a fire knowing that Saratina Kilburn, who was not a participant in the crime, was in the upstairs apartment and died from asphyxia due to inhalation of smoke. The second count of the indictment is arson in the first degree, alleging that Sean Exford, on or about November 30th, 2019 and December 1st, 2019 in the village of Lowell, did damage a building located at 7525 South State Street by starting a fire, knowing that Catherine Crago, who was not a participant in the crime, was in the upstairs apartment and died from asphyxia due to inhalation of smoke. The third count in the indictment is murder in the second degree, under the theory of felony murder, indicating that in the village of Lowell, on or about and between November 30th, 2019 and December 1st, 2019, that Sean Exford did damage a building located at 7525 South State Street by starting a fire and causing the death of Saratina Kilburn, who was not a participant in the crime. Under the theory of felony murder, the fourth count is the charge of murder in the second degree, indicating that on or about and between November 30th, 2019 and December 1st, 2019, Sean Exford did damage a building located at 7525 South State Street by starting a fire and caused the death of Catherine Crago, who was not a participant in the crime. In the fifth count of the indictment, it charges murder in the second degree, indicating that Sean Exford in the village of Lowell, on or about and between November 30th, 2019 and December 1st, 2019, under circumstances evincing a depraved indifference to human life, he recklessly engaged in conduct by starting a fire while knowing that Saratina Kilburn was located in an upstairs apartment, did start a fire in the downstairs common hallway of the building located at 7525 South State Street, and knowing that that hallway was the only egress from the upstairs apartment, did immediately fled said premises without alerting anyone to the fire nearby, causing the death of Sarah Kilburn by asphyxia due to inhalation of smoke. The sixth count of the indictment charges murder in the second degree, alleging that Sean Exford in the village of Lowell, on or about and between November 30th, 2019 and December 1st, 2019, under circumstances evincing a depraved indifference to human life, under reckless conduct, knowing that Catherine Crago was located in an upstairs apartment, did start a fire in the downstairs common hallway of the building located at 7525 South State Street, and while knowing that hallway was the only egress from the upstairs apartment, did immediately flee said premises without alerting anyone to the fire, thereby causing the death of Catherine Crago by asphyxia due to inhalation of smoke. The seventh count charges arson in the second degree, alleging that Sean Exford in the village of Lowell, on or about and between November 30th, 2019 and December 1st, 2019, did damage a building located at 7525 South State Street by starting a fire, knowing that Saratina Kilburn, Catherine Crago, and Brian Mushter, who were not participants in the crime, were present in the upstairs building. The eighth count charges reckless endangerment in the first degree, alleging that Sean Exford in the village of Lowell, and on or about and between November 30th, 2019 and December 1st, while under circumstances evincing a depraved indifference to human life, he recklessly engaged in conduct, knowing that the building located at 7525 South State Street contained occupied apartments, created a grave risk of death to Karen Coster, a resident of an upstairs apartment, by starting a fire in a common hallway and fleeing said premises without alerting anyone to the fire. In the ninth count of the indictment, Sean Exford is charged with the crime of reckless endangerment in the first degree, alleging that in the village of Lowell, on or about and between November 30th, 2019 and December 1st, 2019, while under circumstances evincing a depraved indifference to human life, he recklessly engaged in conduct knowing that the building located at 7525 South State Street contained apartments, created a grave risk of death to Sheldon Coster, a resident of an upstairs apartment, by starting a fire in a common hallway and fleeing said premises without alerting anyone to the fire. The 10th count of the indictment charges the crime of reckless endangerment in the first degree, alleging that Sean Exford in the village of Lowell, County of Lewis, on or about between November 30th, 2019, while under circumstances evincing a depraved indifference to human life, he recklessly engaged in conduct knowing that the building located at 7525 South State Street contained occupied apartments, created a grave risk of death to Kelly Peters, a resident of the upstairs apartment, by starting a fire in a common hallway and fleeing said premises without alerting anyone to the fire. In the 11th count of the indictment, Sean Exford is charged with the crime of reckless endangerment in the first degree, alleging that in the village of Lowell, on or about and between November 30th, 2019 and December 1st, 2019, when under circumstances evincing a depraved indifference to human life, he recklessly engaged in conduct knowing that the building located at 7525 South State Street contained occupied apartments, created a grave risk of death to Jesse Coster Peters, a resident of an upstairs apartment, by starting a fire in the common hallway and fleeing said premises without alerting anyone to the fire. In the 12th count of the indictment, Sean Exford is charged with the crime of reckless endangerment in the first degree in the village of Lovell and on or about November 30th, 2019 to December 1st, 2019, when under circumstances evincing a depraved indifference to human life, he recklessly engaged in conduct knowing that the building located at 7525 South State Street contained occupied apartments, created a grave risk of death to Bentley Coster, a resident of an upstairs apartment, by starting a fire in the common hallway and fleeing said premises without alerting anyone to the fire. And in the 13th count of the indictment, Sean Exford is charged with the crime of reckless endangerment in the first degree in the village of Lovell on or about and between November 30th, 2019 and December 1st, 2019, under circumstances evincing a depraved indifference to human life. He recklessly engaged in conduct by knowing that the building located at 7525 South State Street contained occupied apartments, created a grave risk of death to Brian Mushtair, a resident of a downstairs apartment, by starting a fire in a common hallway and fleeing said premises without alerting anyone to the fire. The Honorable Judge Daniel R. King has remanded Sean Exford on $500,000 cash bail and $1 million secured bond to the Lewis County Jail. He will be returning to court on March 13th, 2020 for a scheduled conference date with his attorney, John Hallett. Thank you.
Any follow-up questions?
How did you find out it was Exford?
As we indicated at the beginning, we are limited in the information that we can provide to you in terms of details of the evidence that we have against any individual. But it was through the thorough investigation by law enforcement that we were able to identify an individual who has been charged in this indictment.
Will there be any other charges against other people? Were there any other people involved?
At this time,
We're still limited, unfortunately. Yeah, it's going to be very limited.
All right.
Can you speak to any motive at all? Obviously, some people were initially thinking maybe, meth lab, something like that. So we can rule, it sounds like it was an intentionally set fire. Are we ruling out a meth lab explosion or anything along those lines?
Okay.
We can infer, I think, from the criminal charges that this is not
Meth related.
Yeah, meth related. That's what I think the grand jury is decided.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we speak to how many people were in the building at the time of the fire?
There were 5 people in the back upstairs apartment, as alleged in counts. I gotta make it. Eight through 12. And at the time, and then there were 3 remaining in the upstairs front apartment where Catherine Crago resided.
So 5 were able to escape in addition to the person that was on the roof?
Correct.
Okay.
And the downstairs resident as well?
No, the downstairs apartment was vacant at the time.
Oh, okay. That you said
But Mushtair was the one that was downstairs, you said, correct?
He resided in a downstairs back apartment. He was
Okay.
visiting the upstairs apartment.
And he was the one rescued from the roof, correct?
Correct.
So he was visiting upstairs.
Are you able to discuss how this happened, or how you think this went on, or?
No, we are unable to describe further details at this time. That would be evidentiary in nature.
Can you explain just a little bit how the new discovery reform laws have impacted the course of the investigation and kind of the timeline with this arrest? Obviously, this crime happened back in November 30th.
Yes, but he was arraigned on today's date, so under
Yes.
the new discovery laws, the people would normally be required to provide discovery within 15 days. However, we have already filed and informed the court and defense attorney that we've requested the automatic extension under voluminous materials for an additional 30 days, thereby giving us 45 days. So that has automatically been done. Under the new discovery laws, and we discussed this during the investigation, this is probably an example of a case where that was taken into account due to the extensive forensic and digital information, documents, evidence, that was taken into account as to how much would have to be copied and supplied and turned over to defense, and the amount of preparation that has gone into by law enforcement to prepare that, to prepare to give to us, to prepare to turn over. Because all that, as part of the discovery laws, has to be reviewed, and we really probably have hundreds of hours.
Correct. And with that said then, is it safe to say that it did impact the timeline of the arrest?
I think
Without the
it's
new
a
discovery laws, would the arrest have been made sooner? And was this person a risk to the community over the last 3 months while he's been free in the community?
I will have our law enforcement also join me in this conversation, but no, this individual was being observed, and should they have ever been a danger or a risk of an immediate nature, of anything that was a concern, we would have taken other action. We're never going to allow the discovery laws to impact our community in that fashion. But it was a factor that was always being considered in terms of how we have to do our jobs. So do the new discovery laws impact? Absolutely, in terms of that, but they are not going to prevent any law enforcement agency from protecting the community.
Thank you.
Do you feel that 30-day extension is sufficient enough for your investigation?
It's going to have to be.
Can you file for another one if it's not?
We will. We have done an immense amount of work up front, so that we're just going to have to do what we have to do. That's the law, so we're going to have to follow it, and we'll take care of doing what we have to do.
I don't know if you can speak to this one last question. There was no indicators, it sounds like, from the indictment that the people, it was definitely asphyxiation. There was no injuries, or they weren't killed before. It actually was through the fire that they passed.
The cause of death is asphyxiation.
For sure.
You mentioned that some of the evidence was digital. Is any of that surveillance that might have been taken from places in the area? And if so, could you talk about, tell us those locations? Or?
I can't get into the specifics nature of any of the evidence because once again that's evidentiary in nature, and I'm not allowed to talk about that. But the community has been wonderful in providing resources when asked by law enforcement.
And can you just speak to what's next in the case, like what the next steps are from your perspective?
Well, we have that conference, so there will be discussions with attorneys and with the court, and the main step for the people will be providing and compiling the discovery.
Are you still waiting for the extra discovery days, or does it have to be ruled on by a judge, or are you automatically granted the extra?
It's an automatic discovery. It's an automatic extension when the materials, one of the grounds is when it's considered voluminous, and in this case that's a fairly given status.
So do you get 45 days from today?
It'll be a total of 45 days.
From today?
From today's date.
With all the video and forensic evidence and things like that involved, do you have everything back from the labs at this point, or is that not something you can discuss?
We will have the documentation. We have most of the testing we were able to do in advance as part of the investigation process in order to continue to ensure that all leads were being followed. So some of the additional items that we need for discovery, such as all the new laws portion will come in its time. So that part has to get done, but that's just a forwarding of documentation. I'm not concerned about that part.
All set.
All set. Thank you.
All good?
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Just FYI, we had excess of 200 leads on this case alone. Yes.
That's amazing. That's from the community.
Leads, right, that we had to follow up on. That's why you see
They had lead sheets.
here. The state police, the village, and the sheriff's department. It was a joint effort.
Is that extraordinary for a case like this?
We worked so well together, the three agencies, and you got to realize there's two people deceased. They needed justice. So it doesn't matter that it was in the village, that they have their own police department, that the county has their own sheriff's department, the state, we all came together to, give this justice. And arsons are complicated cases, and that's why we got to reach out to our fire investigators, so they're experts on that. So that's why I have investigators